Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I've been a yoga teacher now for over 15 years, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like not that long ago. I remember graduating my YTT after the year of learning and studying, and then really feeling kind of like I'd been dropped out into the wilderness of not only running a business, I was familiar with that, but also being a yoga teacher, learning about so many things, how to bring all of these practices into not only my everyday life, but bring them to other people and integrate the philosophy and the practice of yoga into my business. There were some really bumpy days along the way, for sure. I was raising 3 kids. I was at various times managing yoga studios, and I learned a lot of things the hard way. At one point, yoga teachers started to reach out to me and ask me if I could help them to niche down, to specialize. They saw that that's what I was doing. I realized that's what was really making the difference and enabling me to have a successful full-time yoga business. And along the way, I realized how amazing would it be if yoga teachers had access, if they were connected to this information, inspiration, each and every week, so that they could feel supported, so that you can feel supported as a yoga teacher. That's really why this podcast was born, was that I knew what it felt like as a yoga teacher, and I thought this would be an amazing resource for yoga teachers to have a listen in between the classes, workshops, trainings that you are teaching. Now, oftentimes, connected yoga teachers tell me that they listen while they're on the go, and I'd say keep doing what you're doing, cleaning, walking, boating, biking, driving, keep doing whatever you're doing because we take the notes for you. Today's episode, all of the links and notes can be found over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/220. And today's episode, we're going to talk about how you close out your yoga class and offer you some alternatives to Namaste. The whole inspiration behind today's episode is in thanks to different yoga teachers inside of the Connected Yoga Teacher group who reached out to say, hey, I am just feeling like my old way of closing my classes is becoming stale and I'm looking for new ideas. Thank you, Erica, for sharing that one. And thank you also to Patella Flow Yoga, who posted back in October saying that after listening to the podcast with Shala on cultural appropriation, they were just feeling reluctant to say Namaste at the end of the yoga class. And they were asking, what do others say? There were a lot of comments in this thread. There's 149 at this point. I'll make sure to link to both of these because they're inspiring threads to read through. There's ideas, there's discussion, there's conversation. And what we wanted to bring to the podcast today, and thank you so much to Crunch who helped make this possible, was a list of other ways to close your yoga class. The discussion around why is a lot about understanding the word Namaste, while at the same time really looking at cultural appropriation or how yoga has been brought to the West. And I think a great place to start that conversation is the podcast episode with Dr. Shala. I would highly recommend going back and having a listen to that one if you're wondering why would we not say Namaste at the end of our yoga class. Before we dive into today's episode and talking about alternatives to Namaste, let's first hear the hot tip of the week from the team over at Schedulicity.
Hey Connected Yoga Teachers, this is Allison with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Shannon let us know that some of you have been asking about linking Schedulicity with your Google Calendar. Let's walk through that connection now. Once you've logged in with your admin account, head to Settings and open the Providers/Instructors page. Choose your name from the list, and under the Calendar Share header, move that No slider to Yes. Select and copy the full URL that appears in the text field. Next, sign into your Google account and click on the grid box at the top right of the page where you will select the calendar option. Click on the small plus button on the right of the Add Calendars area. Now, choose the option that says From URL and paste your generated link from Schedulicity there. Click Add Calendar and you're good to go. Google generally pushes their calendar share updates once a day, so you may see up to a 24-hour delay in your schedule changes. Also, keep in mind that this is a one-way share in which your Schedulicity appointments will be visible from your Google Calendar, but not vice versa. You may want to work out of your Schedulicity account to avoid double booking yourself just in case.
Thank you so much, Team Schedulicity, for sponsoring the podcast, bringing this to our yoga teachers, and also for helping me to keep my calendar and my scheduling very organized. All right, let's dive right into alternatives that we can say to close out our yoga classes. I think that this list that has been put together again by Crunch, our resident writer, is really inspiring. That's why I wanted to share it here on the podcast. So you can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/220 and find the article. You can also go to our website and just search Close Your Yoga Classes, and you'll find the article and this podcast. Today's episode is here for you anytime that you're feeling like you need a little more inspiration, or if you just want to change something up in your yoga class. I also want to say a huge thank you to all of you who commented and gave permission for us to share your words in this article. It means a lot that this information came from yoga teachers all around the world, and I'm just so grateful that you shared, and I'm so grateful for Crunch's time putting this all together. And speaking of grateful, that's the first one, expressing gratitude. So one favorite inside of the Connected Yoga Teacher group was sharing gratitude, expressing gratitude and giving thanks. A lot of you said that it was just a simple and effective way to end your yoga class, but also teachers said it was a great way to remind themselves about why they're teaching yoga. So of course, you could end the class by saying thank you, but there are also some other ideas that many of you shared. I'll read a few of them here for you. From my heart to yours, thank you for joining me. Thank you for practicing with me. Be grateful to yourself for the time you offered yourself, for your motivation, for the attention you gave yourself. I thank you for practicing with me. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you back here next week. It is always an honor and a privilege to share my practice with you. Thanks for playing. I'm curious to hear from you. Is there a way that you share practices of gratitude in your yoga class? Maybe to close it out, but maybe even partway in between or at the beginning of your class. If you'd like to share either in our show notes or in our Facebook group, we love to hear from you. The next one is sharing an uplifting message or affirmation. You might have already experienced the power of positive affirmations, and you may have even heard that science has proven that there are additional benefits to positive affirmations. This is a great reason to end your class with one. Also in our article, we've linked to some scientific research that talks about the benefits of positive affirmations as well. Now, this is really hard, Connected Yoga Teachers, because I'm only picking a few from this big, long list. But don't worry, it's there for you in the article. So here are some that grabbed my attention right away. Do good, be good, shine bright, and have fun. May all beings be happy and free. May our thoughts, words, and actions support this. May the rest of your week be as beautiful as you are. I have everything I need. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I am grateful to be me. Another way to close out the class is to bring the focus back to breath. This is one favorite of mine for sure. I'll share my favorite at the end, but I know that there are other yoga teachers as well that really like to come back to breath at the end of a class. One Connected Yoga teacher shared that they say 3 breaths, arms raising up and out, into the center and down. So they cue the breath and this movement. Another one was saying 3 unified breaths, seating and taking arms out and up on the inhale, then joining overhead and exhaling down through heart center. And sometimes yoga teachers are adding in an om or a sounding into this as well. When Crunch said to me, "Can you share the way that you close your yoga class?" I was like, "Sure." And I realized I needed to sit there for a moment with my phone on audio, because it's not like I typed this out. It was something that I would say at the end of the class. And I find myself right now getting ready and closing my eyes, because that's generally how I do it. Here's how I love to close class. Bringing hands to heart center, finding an inhale. As you exhale, tip forward, releasing anything that no longer serves you. Inhaling, rising up, bringing anything you might need as you go forward into this week. Thank you. At this point right now, I want to tell you that I used to close my class with a namaste in place of that thank you, and I switched it out as I got to learn more about cultural appropriation and about the teachings of yoga. And this was a personal choice of mine, and I know for a little bit it was a bit confusing for my students when I switched. And I just simply explained to them that I was learning something and I no longer felt comfortable using Namaste. I like to be really open and honest with students. Whenever I learn something new, I just like to share it. That's the way my personality is. And the last really inspiring way to close out a class is thank you to Caroline Holmes. So Caroline shared this, and Crunch has linked to Caroline's website and asked for permission to really share in detail about this. So we know that many of us have been doing classes virtually. As I record this for you right now, Ontario is in a third lockdown. And I think as it releases, we are just about ready for that lockdown to possibly lift near the end of May 2021. So here for me in Canada, it's a really real thing, still having online classes. And so I appreciate this so much. I think this is a great way to close out a class and build community, no matter if you're online or in person. So Caroline Holmes shared that she uses the closing of her class as a time to build and strengthen the relationship with and between her students by allowing the students to close the class. At the end of every virtual class, Caroline unmutes all her students and invites one person to walk them out and end the class. The student then closes the class with any words that they choose, sharing their own thoughts and words in the spur of the moment and speaking from the heart. Caroline also shared that this has been a really humbling experience for her as a yoga teacher, and that the students' words have, on occasion, moved her to tears. For Caroline and her students, closing the class has become a joint effort that helps to bring her students together. Oh my goodness, I love this so much for many different reasons. I love that students' voices come into the space. It's a thing to build community. Students can experience someone else's words. And it really also takes out that whole I'm the teacher and I do everything here, and moves it so that it shifts the power around in a yoga class. I love this so much. So I want to hear from you. You can either add to these existing threads, or you can add your thoughts in our show notes if you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/220. I would love to know, do you express words of gratitude? Do you share an affirmation? Do you bring it back to the breath? Is there some type of movement there? Or do you allow students to do the closing in some way? And the most important thing as you close out your classes is to really make it so that it feels like it comes from you. It's comfortable for you. It's something that you would generally say anyway. And I would love to hear, what are those unique words that you share to close out your class? If enough of you want to actually get together and share an audio clip of how you close out your class, you can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com, and there's a button right there that says leave Shannon a voicemail. You can leave a 90-second voice message and close out the class and we might just put it together into a podcast or share it on a podcast. You can always leave us a voice message about what you're thinking about the podcast, questions that you have, thoughts that you have, the ways that you close out your class. Also, just remember to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you are, and what is the work that you do. Speaking of closing, as we close out today's podcast episode, I would like to say a huge thank you to our entire team for all of the work that you do for making each and every podcast possible, as well as for facilitating the community over in the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. And thank you, dear listener, for being here, for showing up sometimes each and every week, or maybe you're a brand new listener. It means a lot that you're here. And I want to know, as we close out, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community, so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?